Greetings, Emery here with another edition of SaaS Metrics School. Welcome. So today, mind the gap in your renewal dates. And it's funny, I'm on Maxio's email list and they had a mind the gap, but it was for a different subject, I think, when they were talking about retention. So today, talking about mind the gap in your renewal dates. This wreaks havoc in your MRO schedule. It wreaks havoc in your retention reporting, and it's going to cause you a ton of pain in due diligence. So, what I mean by mind the gap in our renewal dates. So, this comes up quite often for higher ACV businesses targeting mid market enterprise customers where we're invoicing annually. We have multi year contracts, maybe single year contracts, doesn't matter. And it's coming up to renewal date. So, let's just say their renewal date is July 1st, and I consider that the anniversary month. So, when I talk about anniversary dates, that's the month of renewal or the month that we send out that additional invoice, say year two of a 3-year contract. And so what happens is, of course, we have our CS team being proactive, reaching out, prepping for the renewal, or maybe our account management team. We get the contract in front of that customer to sign them up for another 3 years, but maybe we can't get a hold of them. Maybe they're not responding to us and we're not sure what to do. We're reaching out. And then we hit July 1st. As a CFO, I'm hitting up my AM team, kind of what's going on here. Are we getting this renewal? Should we send out that, evergreen invoice? And so this is a case where we're just not getting feedback from that customer. And then say it's July, and then the customer comes back to us and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to renew. So let's sign the contract, let's invoice. Now, in practice, when I've done this, I have not had a gap in that schedule. So if their anniversary date was July 1st and they finally get back to us, and let's say it's August 1st, and there's a gap where there was no revenue, they didn't pay for the product in July. Now, I like to keep the renewal date on that same date so there is no gap in our MR schedule. But depending on the customers you're targeting, maybe your government, schools, where they have very strict policies of when they can be invoiced or invoiced in that fiscal year, sometimes it creates a gap in our MRR schedule. So now their anniversary date shifts to August 1st. And now we have this month with no revenue in our MRR schedule. And the problem with that is when we go to run aggregate revenue retention analysis on that, it's going to show churn and then a new customer because the formulas don't know. They're going to see a gap in the schedule. That's a churn. And then it's a new customer. Of course, that's going to wreak havoc in our retention reporting. It's not going to be accurate as far as new customer. It's not going to be accurate as far as churn because then that new customer will flow into our CAC and all that stuff, and that skews the numbers. So it's just not the situation we want. So this is where contracting is sometimes underestimated. Just a good contracting process. There's no gap in those anniversary dates if we can avoid it. Now, sometimes maybe just the customers we're serving, it just doesn't work that way. But ideally, we keep that same anniversary date, especially if they still have access to the product. Maybe they haven't renewed yet, but they're still using the product. We haven't locked them out. They have access. We can see that they're in the system in July. And that's a whole nother story. That's where I'm going to push for then a July 1st renewal date, even if we're not signing this until August because they're still using the product. So we have to be very careful with this because if that is our life and we just have gaps and we can't get away from it, it is going to be a problem with retention. We're going to have to come up with some sort of alternative retention reporting because you're going to send your MRR schedule to say an investor, buyer, and they're going to be like, what the heck's going on here? What's all this churn? What's all the new customers? Your sales and marketing metrics are off. So just mind the gap with your renewal dates. Look at your contracting process. Try to keep that same anniversary date so we don't have gaps in our MR schedule. And if you'd like to create your MR schedule, I have a link in the show notes with my MR template, my retention template, and a quick video tutorial. So make sure you check out that free course if you don't have an MR schedule yet or you haven't calculated retention yet. So a little bit today about mind the gap.